When you see the chest is symmetrically bilaterally symmetrical, or any deformities are there, or the mediastinal shift is there, or the apical impulse, where is that? Whether it is in the fourth intercostal space, or the inside the midclavicle line, or outside the midclavicle line. And when you talk about the adults, see the apical impulse is in fifth intercostal space, when compared to the less than 3 years of age is only fourth intercostal space. Then we have to see the crepitations are there, or ronchi are there, or air entry is on both sides is equal or not. Then hyperinflation of the chest. Then don't forget about the appreciate the heart sound S1 and S2, and any murmurs are there or not. So the time of onset of the respiratory distress, if you take the preterm, it is less than 6 hours. We can think of the probable diagnosis or probable possible the causes of the respiratory distress like iron membrane disease and the congenital pneumonia, transient tachypnea of the newborn, lung malformation like bilateral corneal atresia, congenital diaphragmatic hernia, lobar emphysema, and pneumothorax. When you take about the 6 to 24 hours of the delivery, we can think of the some of the cases cause for this respiratory distress is aspiration, maybe due to the amniotic fluid or meconium or something, and they think of the congenital pneumonia also, and shock. Don't forget about that, and duct dependent congenital heart disease like ESD and VSD, PDA. So the lung malformations also very important. Congenital malformations or cystic malformation of the lung is very important. And the in addition to that, the hair leak syndrome like pneumothorax and lobar adrenopneumothorax like that. So after 24 hours of the delivery, we can think of the acquired pneumonia like community acquired pneumonia or the hospital acquired pneumonia, and the PDA, persistent ductus arteriosus, is very commonly occurs in preterm, and aspiration pneumonias and the aspiration syndrome. Why we are putting this? Because of the chances of the amniotic fluid aspiration or blood or like that. So the don't think of the other factors. Don't forget about the congenital heart disease that may present later also, and shock. When coming to the term babies is less than 6 hours of delivery, the most commonest cesarean babies, we can entertain the transient tachypnea of the newborn or congenital pneumonia, post-asphyxial lung dysfunction, aspiration syndromes, meconium or amniotic fluid or blood aspiration, lung malformation. Then congenital pleural effusion is very rare. It can occur even in a newborn also. Then associated with the infant of diabetic mother, don't forget about that secondary island membrane disease, because in a mother is having the diabetes, there is a defect in the synthesis of the surfactant in these babies. That's why you call it the secondary island membrane disease. And other thing, pneumothorax. When you take the 6 to 24 hours, the aspiration syndromes, congenital heart disease, that to duct dependent. Duct dependent is the because of the ductus arteriosus, ductus venosus. These are the unique structures in the fetal heart. So that is very important. Then only we can label is a duct dependent or not. So left to right shunts is very important. That may present during the newborn itself. Then pneumothorax and polycythemia. Because polycythemia also very important in utero, the baby, the fetus will experience the mild asphyxia. They may develop the respiratory distress, and there is a chances of the erythropoietin increased levels that may lead to polycythemia. Physiological polycythemia will be there. So that may lead to the respiratory distress or the seizures or cyanosis, or it may have the cardiac problems also in a polycythemia. Then lung malformations, then congenital pleural effusion. Then when you take the after 24 hours acquired pneumonias and pneumothorax and the pulmonary the conditions and congenital heart disease and shock. Then coming to the possible the etiology of the causes of the respiratory distress and preterm in a early progressive, or that is the most important is the island membrane disease. Early transient is temporary. It may be due to the birth asphyxia, it may be due to the hypoglycemia, it may be due to hypocalcemia or thermal instability, hyperthermia or hypothermia, both. Then any time it may occur that because of the pneumonia and lung malformations. So term baby, if you take the term baby, possible conditions are if the baby is well, on appearance and active, you think of the TTNB. TTNB is nothing but transient tachypnea of the newborn and polycythemia. Early severe distress is there, and that severe, it indicates the meconium aspiration or asphyxia, congenital malformation is very, very important. If the baby is very sick, occurs very late with hepatomegaly, think of the cardiac origin. When the baby is very sick, coming with the prolonged CFT, that the capillary filling time is more than 3 seconds, it may go into the shock. So that shock may be due to metabolic acidosis or pneumonias or pneumothorax. So these are the some of the possibilities you can entertain the diagnosis of the respiratory distress. Then how to suspect the surgical conditions of the respiratory distress. The surgical condition, you have how to examine the physical examination head to toe. Then you don't forget about the nasal examination and the cleft palate is there or not, and the micrognathia is there or not, or bilateral conal atresia is there or not, or the abdomen is scaphoid and the scaphoid and respiratory distress is there. Don't forget that may be due to the congenital diaphragmatic hernia. All the contents of the abdomen may go into the lungs. That's why you call it the scaphoid abdomen. And there is a drooling of the saliva and frothing at the angle of the mouth. Then history of aspiration is there or not. These are the some of the clues we can think of the surgical causes of the respiratory distress. So now coming in detail about the history is very, very important. Physical examination and history both are very, very important. So don't forget about the history. Our medicine is if you don't attempt to extract the information from the parents or attendants, you are not able to come to a conclusion or arrive at a differential diagnosis. That is very, very important when compared to the surgery, and the medicine is very, very important. History taking in medicine, pediatric medicine or general medicine, pulmonary medicine. So here, how to differentiate? So you take the antenatal history, intranatal history, and postnatal history. If you take the respiratory problems like the preterm delivery is there, or PROM is premature rupture of the membranes. Intranatally, any foul smell liquor is there, meconium stain liquor is there, or prolonged second stage of life, labor, or unclean vaginal examination. These factors will give the clue to think of the early neonatal sepsis. The postnatal onset of the respiratory distress is there or not. With the cardiac is always you have to go for the TFA ultrasound antenatally was done or not. That may indicate some of the congenital anomalies like cardiac or CNS or GIT anomalies. So here the cardiac anomalies are very, very important. So that you have to evaluate the history wise. Then in intranatal during the delivery, you may not find any problem in a cardiac cases because if the pulmonary vasculature and pulmonary circulation is later will develop because of the smooth muscles of the pulmonary vessels will take place to develop fully. So the cardiac conditions may manifest after second week, first week or second week of delivery, or at least the 3 days of delivery. So the hematological causes, like you have to think of the blood groups are very, very important, and eye drops and placenta previa is there or not. Then during the delivery, antepartum hemorrhage or failure and the limp at birth. There is no movements at all, the upper limb and lower limbs, and milking of the umbilical cord. And these are the these some of the things we can give the clue to think of the hematological condition which the anemia may contribute for the respiratory distress. Then neurological, the intrauterine growth restriction or retardation or oligoidomias or decreased fetal movements are there, or during the delivery, any difficulty or prolonged labor is there, or difficult forced delivery, vaccine delivery, or there is a chances of the delayed crying because of birth asphyxia in utero itself or perinatal asphyxia is there. So that it may needs the resuscitation, neonatal resuscitation is very, very important. And these history, if you don't ask in detail about these things, we cannot come to a conclusion. Then postnatally, any onset of the seizures are there. So the seizures are there that indicates the neurological causes. Seizures with respiratory distress, cyanosis may be there or may not be there, apnea may be there. Apnea is nothing but the transient, the cessation of the respiration for more than 10 seconds or 20 seconds. So we are on examination and investigation purpose, we have to go in detail. If it is respiratory, air entry auscultation is very, very important, whether the air entry is poor or on one side or both side is equal or not, and take the X-ray test, X-ray, any indication is there, like consolidation, aspiration or something, or the cardiomegaly. Then cardiac causes the poor or unwe and the femoral pulses and peripheral pulses are very, very important. Then abnormal second sound, the P2 may be loud or the feeble. Then the other murmurs may be there. So absent of the murmur also we cannot exclude the congenital heart disease. Don't take it like that. In medicine there is no hard and fast rule. So the flexibility will be there, depends on the your clinical examination who is attending the patient. That is most important. Don't label and don't put the diagnosis. This is not the cardiac cause. So that be careful about the examination is very, very important because of the COVID pandemic. You are not able to see the physical examination of the patients. So anyway, at least the online, if you take the background, at least the background, if you know, then coming months, if you are able to come to the hospital, we have to see the patient and examine in detail. So these are the very, very important, and hematologically, the anemia is there or not, the pallor is there, or the splenomegaly, hepatomegaly, and the hematocrit and hemoglobin, and the Coombs test, then abnormal hemoglobin like thalassemia major or like that sickle cell anemia. So these are the some of the clues. Then neurologically, there is a high pitch shrill cry will be there that indicates hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, and there is abnormal tone of the lower limbs or upper limbs maybe there, or if you elicit the knee jerk or maybe abnormal ankle jerk or knee jerk, don't take that we cannot elicit the deep tendon reflexes in any bar. Only the few reflexes we can elicit like a knee and ankle, not all. Then there is abnormal neurosonogram. NSE is nothing but the neurosonogram. There is ultrasound of the cranium, and we have to take the EEG and the BERA also. So these are the some of the clues to think of the the clues for the cause of the etiology of the respiratory distress. Coming to the investigations, the most important is the gastric aspirate. We have to take the estimation of the LS ratio, lecithin and sphingomyelin. And sphingomyelin is a constant, and the changes only in the lecithin. So we have to take the polymer count also, our septic screen like CBP and absolute neutrophil count, IT ratio, and the CRP and the procalcitonin. These are all the septic screening. Then don't forget to take the chest X-ray. Sometimes it may need the ultrasound of the chest also. Then blood gas analysis. It may give the metabolic acidosis or the alkalosis. So this is very, very important. And when you take the ratio of the lecithin and sphingomyelin ratio, if it is more than 2, it indicates the maturity of the lung. If the LS ratio is less than 2, it indicates the immaturity of the lung. So that may go into the respiratory distress. So here is very, very important. The surfactant, what contains it, the composition of the surfactant is very, very important. If you know the only few points is enough, the UC level. That is, the sphingomyelin remains constant after 2 weeks, but the lecithin is a phosphatidyl glycerol, appears at 35 weeks and increases at 37 to 40 weeks of gestational age, and does not affect by the blood or meconium contamination. So the how to take the bedside test, and the bedside you have to take the gastric aspirate in a test tube, and take in 0.5 ml of the gastric aspirate, mix it with 0.5 ml of the absolute alcohol, and shake for 15 seconds, then allow to stand for 15 minutes, then observe for the any bubbles are there. at the top level of the test tube. That is the interpretation we can get it. Bubbles are there that indicates the lung maturity. So this is very very important. So next, sorry. So this is the X-ray, the typical X-ray of the lung, and this whiteout lung is there. Is a typical X-ray finding of the late stage of the hyaline membrane disease, what you call the whiteout lung. There is a lung parenchyma is not there on both sides, and we cannot differentiate the cardiac shadows. So the X-ray findings of the hyaline membrane disease, initially they may have the reticulogranular pattern will be there, or ground glass opacity will be there, and the lung volumes are very low, and air bronchogram also you can appreciate. And the later advanced stage of the hyaline membrane disease, we call it the whiteout lung in severe respiratory distress. Then the how to manage this respiratory distress. The management is very very important after taking the detailed history and physical examination, and how to monitor this patient. You have to see the vitals is very very important, and the you have to put under the warmer and start IV fluid, then the oxygen and the respiratory support, and any the baby requires the respiratory the specific treatment is needed or not. How to give the oxygen, and this oxygen also you should know during this pandemic, everybody is giving the information in the TV and channel and the paper, and so much of the SMS and WhatsApp messages are there. There you have to see the SpO2 is very very important. The importance of the SpO2 pulse oximeter, it is very very important in a newborn and ICU, MICU, NICU, PICU, every the intensive care units. Here, how to give this oxygen? All babies which are having the respiratory distress and the central sinus is there, SpO2 is less than 90%. So you have to give the by cannula or the face mask, or the flow rate of the oxygen should be 2 to 5 liters per minute, and usually the oxygen should be humidified by hood or nasal fronts. So the pulse oximeter is effective in a non-invasive monitoring of the oxygen saturation, and usually will apply to detect the clinical the how much is the saturation is there. We have to go intensive management is required or not. So if it is less than 94% is very very important here. And now everybody knows this during the pandemic, everybody is telling no. So this the COVID infection is there. We have to monitor the SpO2 and the pulse rate and BP, all these things. Like that, here also the newborn, if the baby is having the respiratory distress, here don't forget to see the vitals and SpO2 and peripheral pulses. This is very very important. So respiratory distress is the think of the early onset is there, you think of the preterm, and supportive evidence, the negative shake test that what we have discussed, the shake test of the gastric aspirates, then radiological X-ray findings are there or not, and what are the predisposing factors for the respiratory distress in a preterm or the term is the infant of diabetic mother or antepartum hemorrhage, and second pain or birth asphyxia or metabolic acidosis or shock, and the male sex. These are the risk factors will be there. And what is the pathogenesis of this respiratory distress? When the pathogenesis, you take the pathophysiology, there is a decrease of normal surfactant synthesis will be there in the lung. This surfactant is synthesized in the pneumocytes type 2 cells. Type 1, there are pneumocytes type 1 and type 2 are there in the lungs during the development of the lung. And type 2 is very, very important. That type 2 is the involving the surfactant synthesis. And there is a ischemic changes, the injury to the alveoli causing the transudation of the proteins and forming the membrane. And that's why we call it the hyaline membrane disease. Then there is a collapse of the alveoli. There is no opening of the alveoli because there is no gas exchange will be there at the level of the alveoli. So the respiratory failure, we go into the respiratory failure. So again, the predisposing, just now we discussed, and the most important cesarean baby also, very, very important. And the protective mechanism, some of the protective factors will be there. when there is a premature rupture or a baby, and steroid were given antenatally to the mother. So the steroids are betamethasone and dexamethasone will be there. Betamethasone every the 2 days we have to give. And next I will show the slide. Then surfactant, if you take the composition of the surfactant is very, very important. It may contain the mixture of the lipids and the surface proteins. If you know the at least the minimum knowledge about the surfactant, I am not going in detail about the surfactant composition. Here is very, very important. Only few things. It is a mixture of the lipids, and the surface proteins will be there. A, B, C, D will be there, and it is secreted by the type 2 cells, pneumocytes, and 60% of the liquid constitute the saturated dipalmityl phosphatidylcholine. That is what we call the lecithin. Is the most important component, and that will reduce the surface tension in the alveoli. Another component is the phosphatidylglycerol and phosphatidyl inositol. These four unique the apoproteins are there. These unique we call it the SPA, SPB, SPC, and SPD. And the surface protein. Sorry. Hello. Hello. Govardhan. అది నేను పంపించిన చూసినవా లేదా? నేను క్లాస్లో ఉన్నా, నేను పంపించిన బ్యాంక్ డీటెయిల్స్ SMS and WhatsApp. Okay, క్లాస్లో ఉన్నా. Okay. So sorry for disturbance. And the SP, don't get confusion. Surface proteins A, B, C, and D. So genetic material that will decide the synthesis of these surface proteins. And what are the functions of the surfactant? Is the surface active material start production at 20 weeks of gestation, and it may go up to the peak level at 37, 38 weeks, and it reduces the surface tension, prevents the collapse of the alveoli at the end of the expiration. These are the factors. These are the functions of the surfactant. If you take the diagrammatic representation, these alveoli, and this membrane, surfactant film is there, and later it may become the membrane, hyaline membrane. So this is very, very important. So the antenatal steroid to prevent the premature delivery or prematurity. So how to give this in OBG? The OBG faculty members will deal this, and here pediatric side also there is the link will be there without the neonatology and link with the obstetrics. There is no means we cannot deny some of the things. We have to contact the obstetricians, what were the problems in antenatally, what were the problems during delivery. So collaboration with the obstetrician will be there. Always you have to cooperate with the obstetricians, then only we will come to the appropriate management of the particular condition in the newborn. So how to they will give. See the preterm labor is there. So how to indications are there. This is the indication steroid before the 24 to 34 weeks. Before 34 weeks of gestation, irrespective of the PROM is the premature rupture of the membranes or hypertension or diabetes, the dose of the steroid is entirely different. If you take the betamethasone 12 milligrams intramuscularly and every 24 hours, 2 doses only. Another is the dexamethasone 6 milligrams intramuscular every 12 hours for 4 doses. There is no need of multiple doses. Don't use your brain or enthusiastic or heroicism in newborn management. So the issue of the surfactant, when there is the premature baby is having the respiratory distress, hyaline membrane disease there, already you know the clinical features, and nitrocostal retraction and grunt is there. And what is your management? The management is we have to provide the oxygen and IV fluids and the thermoregulation maintenance. Then you have to introduce the surfactant. Is very, very important. The surfactant is the two types are there, prophylactic and rescue therapy. But in India, we are not using the prophylactic, only the rescue. That rescue, how to give this the surfactant, exogenous surfactant. We call it the exogenous surfactant. and the dose is 100 milligrams per kg phospholipid intratracheally through the endotracheal tube. And see, rescue, what you call that the procedure is the insure. We call it the insure. I will show you. So the insure is nothing but the IN is intubate the child, the newborn, then give the exogenous the surfactant through the endotracheal tube, then rapidly you extubate immediately. What you call the surfactant therapy ensure. So wherever the facilities are available for the ventilator support, there only you can use this surfactant therapy. Don't use like a community hospital or where the ventilator therapies, the facilities are not available. Don't use this surfactant or like that, and don't use like the adventurous things. So judicially, you have to judge when to refer the case, when to act, when to interfere for the management. Very, very important. So the in detail we have discussed and the island membrane disease. Then other causes are there. The other causes of respiratory disease is like meconium, the aspiration syndrome, and transient tachypnea of the newborn. This meconium is not the nothing but the antepartum or intrapartum. There is a staining of the amniotic fluid is there or not. Whether it is a thick or thin, that is doesn't matter. That the meconium going into the larynx and glottis and it will obstruct the bronchi and the alveoli, it may give rise to the collapse of the lung or the what you call that air leak syndrome, also atelectasis and air blockage will be there. So that is very, very important of this meconium staining of the liquor, which may go into the respiratory tract. So it is most common in a term and a post-term babies, and there is a staining of the umbilical cord and nails, and the onset is occurs within 4 to 6 hours, and there is a meconium aspiration is there. There is a hyperinflation of the chest. If you take the chest X-ray, all the spaces of the intercostal spaces of the X-ray chest, more than 8 spaces will be there. What you call the hyperinflated chest. So what is the cause for this meconium aspiration? If you take the pathogenesis of the meconium aspiration in utero, usually there is a mild asphyxia will be there, fetal asphyxia will be there, and that may have the experience of the stress, intrauterine stress will be there, and there is a chances of the fetal distress by hypoxia. There is a compression of the umbilical cord or head will be there. So that compression of the umbilical cord will stimulate the vagus nerve, and when there is stimulation of the vagus nerve, parasympathetic activity is more. When the parasympathetic activity is more, there is opening of the glottis and the anal sphincter is opening. And another contributing factor is high motility levels in the stomach. So that will give rise to the meconium passage and the meconium, staining of the amniotic fluid. MSAF is nothing but meconium staining amniotic fluid. And these are some of the short forms will be there. So MS is meconium aspiration that may mechanically obstruct the air passages, may go into the acute hypoxia, or functional effect will be there. There is a surfactant inactivation will be there. When there is a surfactant inactivation, there is a release of the cytokines and vasoconstriction of the vessels will be there. That may leads to the pulmonary vessel, the involvement will be there. Later, it may go into the persistent pulmonary hypertension and chemical pneumonitis. This is the pathogenesis of the meconium aspiration syndrome. When you take the X-ray chest, the patchy pneumonitis is there and aspiration of the meconium. Then how to prevent this meconium aspiration? Oropharyngeal section is there, is very, very important, and the endotracheal section is very, very important. When you want to know the neonatal resuscitation program is entirely different, that is a separate topic, and we have to see at the time of delivery whether baby is having the vigorous and non-vigorous. Vigorous means we have to check the tone of the muscle and best effort of the respiration, and heart rate should be more than 100. Then only we call it a vigorous baby. Non-vigorous means heart rate is less than 100. There is a limp of the limbs, and then when the non-vigorous baby is there in meconium aspiration, Don't attempt to do the like oropharyngeal suction by mucus sucker or something. You directly go for the endotracheal suction is very, very important. And another thing, don't apply your bag and mask. That self-inflating bag should not use in meconium aspiration and congenital diaphragmatic hernia. These are the two contraindications for the use of the bag and mask. So the transient decay of the newborn usually occurs in the because of the cesarean babies, and why it is because there is inadequate clearance of the lung fluid. The natural process, God's gift is there during the normal delivery. There is squeezing of the chest will be there, and that the squeezing of the chest really clears the lung fluid. So that's why the normal deliveries, you may not find these TTNB, only cesarean babies, because there is no, they directly will go for the section, then extract the newborn, and so there is no chance of the squeezing of the stress to the newborn. So it is very commonly seen in a cesarean babies, and and main cause is delayed clearance of the lung fluid, and this is only for exclusion of the diagnosis only, and management is a supportive only. And this is the chest X-ray. If you take the TTNB, the hyperinflation is there. Spaces of intercostal spaces are more, and the lower areas are the dark when compared to the upper zones of the lungs. And there is a mild cardiomegaly will be there in TTNB. This is only the for the to understand the I am showing the some of the X-rays. Then coming to the congenital pneumonia, the predisposing factors are the PROM more than 24 hours, cold smell lighter, unclean vaginal examination, and maternal fever 1 week prior to delivery, 1 week after delivery, and multiple vaginal examination without using the gloves. So these are the predisposing factors will be there, and here we have to prompt management of these babies should be there. We have to provide the warmer and IV fluids, then NPO, then give the oxygen, then if needed, you use the antibiotics. The best antibiotic is the safe side is ampicillin and gentamicin. So this is the congenital pneumonia X-ray is there. This patchy pneumonia is on the right side. Is very, very big here. So then nosocomial pneumonia, the risk factors are the hospital acquired or community acquired. Hospital acquired is a premature baby or term baby who experience for the ventilation or ventilator therapy. So there the risk factor will be there. Tube infected or something like that, and most common in a preterm. And the prevention, how to prevent hand wash technique is very, very important in the NICU. Then use the disposables always, and they control the NICU measures, the infective measures will be there. Always daily, if anybody who are working in NICU or DIA or nurse or doctors, if they are having the upper respiratory tract infection, we don't allow them. If they are having the diarrhea or vomitings are there, we don't allow them. It is very, very important. The best medicine for the control of the septicemia is only the hand wash technique and use the clearance. So that is very, very important. So the antibiotic whenever required, you use. I'm audible or not? The something is network connection. I'm audible. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm getting the indication network. Okay. Then coming to the other, the birth perinatal asphyxia, there the multiple organ involvement will be there because of the birth asphyxia. There is the most important the cerebral hypoxia, and this hypoxia may eventually affect the kidneys and cardiac and liver and other organs also. What we call the heart myocardial dysfunction will be there, cerebral edema will be there, lung injury will be there, metabolic acidosis, and persistent pulmonary hypertension. Pneumothorax may be spontaneous or maybe due to the positive pressure ventilation or maybe due to the meconium aspiration, and clinical features will be there, sudden onset of the respiratory stress and increased respiratory rate, and we cannot find out the heart sounds when you examine the chest, and we cannot appreciate the apical impulse. and we cannot auscultate the odd sounds also, indistinct odd sounds. So management of this pneumothorax is only nothing but the needle aspiration and chest tube you have to put. So pneumothorax, this is a typical X-ray of the pneumothorax. And there is a mediastinal shift is there, and this the mediastinum heart is shifted to the right, and in the complete the black is there pneumothorax. So persistent pulmonary hypertension may be due to the secondary or the primary. Secondary is due to the aspiration or septicemia or asphyxia, and we have to manage the respiratory distress. The most important is ventilatory support only, and we have to use the pulmonary vasodilators, and it may carry the poor prognosis. So when to refer this respiratory distress case of the newborn, when we are suspecting the hyaline membrane disease, meconium aspiration, and surgical conditions are there, bilateral corneal atresia, or the congenital diaphragmatic hernia, lobar emphysema, pneumothorax, like that, or the shunt dependent congenital heart diseases are there. And when there is the worsening of the respiratory distress is there, we have to refer the case to the higher center, which may require the ventilatory therapy. Thank you. Any doubts?